Egunon, guztioi. Gracias por la invitación al Gobierno Vasco, al Departamento de Educación.
Thank you to the Basque government, and especially to the Basque government delegation has been very kind to invite me together with the Director General for the VET. I'm going to speak in Spanish.
To make satisfactory presentation to the majority. So, okay.
The idea of my presentation is to present on how in the European Union we see the implementation of a tool called Youth Guarantee, and how the VET can contribute to the implementation of Youth Guarantee. So yesterday we already heard about some figures, and when we talk about youth unemployment, which is what I cover at the Directorate of Employment in the European Commission, we've always observed that the youth unemployment has been outstanding, is not the crisis one of the key elements, but with the crisis we've seen an increase. If you look at the red line, since 2003 and 2004, where there was economic increase, there was an enormous gap between unemployment, youth unemployment, and normal unemployment, so to speak. And when we look at the purple line, this shows low-skilled unemployed workers, and those that do not have secondary education level. In 2010, the 2020 strategy was set up, and this strategy is going to guide us in terms of policies up from 2010 to 2020. But looking at the election results, and within the transferring powers to European Parliament, and looking at the results, maybe the 2020 strategy is going to change or is going to take a different direction. So in this strategy we set 5 basic indicators, and one of them was the unemployment rate among working population. From 2010 till now, we haven't been able to increase. The idea was to increase up to 75% till 2020. So if we don't act immediately and strongly, the aim will not be achieved in 2020. From both graphs, we can say that unemployment youth sets the difference, so to speak. The older workers, both due to their having a permanent contract work, are constantly in the work market, but when we look at the youth, they have a lot of oscillations. It changes a lot, and Spain, Greece and Croatia have high unemployment youth rates, and in Spain there are differences. There are even greater differences in the Basque country. These levels are lower, whereas in other regions of Spain we see that there is a high number of young youth that are not working. But the main problem is not the jobless, the people who don't work or don't study, what we call the jobless generation, those who don't work, who are not in any study course, that are inactive, so to speak. So being 17 years old and not doing anything is not very good for the future. There on this graph you can see it, especially to the right, you can see the percentage of this jobless generation that do not work and do not study, and this rate has increased, and Spain is among them, unfortunately. And this is where we consider in the Commission that we need to double efforts in order to include them or give them training. And we reckon that your role is very important. Very briefly, I'm going to talk about the different measures that we have at European level and that have been already put in place, and they all under the umbrella framework which is called Opportunities for Youth Employment. We have the initiative for Youth Employment Initiative, which was the idea to devote a considerable amount, which is not sufficient, to specific measures to promote youth employment. We have the recommendation from the European Council on youth guarantee, and then we have the apprenticeship European Alliance that Jar has already explained, and something that is probably outside the political framework, which was also adopted by the Council, which is the reference framework on the internship quality at a European level. We set basic guarantees that all internships needed to include. And this is internship, observing the internships as the first stage. We can't have our young ones in internships forever. When we talk about youth guarantee, at the beginning, people didn't understand what it meant. People thought that it was some sort of commercial guarantee, that if you are not happy with the product you bought, you can return it. But we can't apply this to the youth. The idea is to bring together experiences that we found in different countries and to create a general framework under which we thought that under 25, and then there are some reasons why we set the limit on the 25. In 4 months after finishing their formal training, or they have become unemployed, they receive a good offer by the employment services or by other agencies. This good offer includes 4 pillars: that we find a job that is adequate to the person. Those would be very good. But not only that, the idea is that this person can continue training or could receive continuous training at the workplace, or to have an internship or a work placement if this is someone who's just finished the studies. It's easy to understand, but as you'll see a bit later, putting it into practice is not always easy, as is always the case. So on the one hand, we have the methodological framework that have been defined at a European level, and there we have different acronyms. We have the QFT, which is the practices quality framework. We have the apprenticeship alliances. If we want someone to be included into the work market, we need it to be well positioned. And then we have the mobility measures at a European level. This also needs the funding mechanisms that need to support the youth. And then we have the European Social Fund, which is moving around, so to speak, 90 billion euros. Then we have the Youth Employment Initiative, where we have about 6,000 million euros. And then we have the national budgets. If we want to have that lever effect, we need to get more money, so that is all being funded. Then we have other European projects like Erasmus Plus, the FIDE, and the idea is that these elements end up or converge in the same tool, which is youth guarantee, and then max of 4 months when this person is out of the educational system or out of the working system, we can have a customized offer for this person. So not everything works. At a European level, we've reached framework, and the idea is that there's always going to be an agreement, and in this agreement we set the rights and the obligations of that person. And they always claim for additional attention. We call about the lost generation. I think we need to break away from this to have long-term trainees. And like in the United States, we need a apprenticeship program. The idea is to learn or to be trained. So we need to have well-established working conditions. And as I said before, and the duration needs to be reasonable, both for work contracts or work agreements. We cannot offer just temporary agreements and just think that we fix the problem in terms of work market, and not having internships that are too long when we see that a young person feels that it's already comfortable and trained. There's no public employment as service from any country that can solve this problem. Spain has 800,000 young people in this that come under this condition, and the employment agency couldn't cover. That's why it's important to cooperate with different training centers or with the third sector entities, and they need to also to collaborate with the European Union. They need to suggest a active proposal in order to include or to give access to the young people to the work market. So what's logical is to have a young person that has deficiencies in terms of school dropout or deficiencies in learning, is to intervene in an early stage in order to avoid too much spending. And our ambition is that this youth guarantee is not just another tool. We cannot have a collection of policies. We need to change the things, how we view things. The Spanish government and regional authorities have made the commitment to try and reach the young people that are registered in the unemployment agency, and to either to give them incentives or to help them look for a qualification. We need to cooperate and collaborate among systems. That's why the European Union has made this available, so that we have a lever effect for the national funds. So the youth guarantee is not something that is just a promotion or ideas. It's not based on ideas. And sometimes we find examples, real examples, in Finland, where youth guarantee was already put into practice some years ago, and we managed to reach nearly all the youth population. I think it was 83.5% that were under the condition that I mentioned before. And the convergence of efforts from different entities made this possible, achieving the final goal. And many of you may wonder, well, how are we going to do this in where we are cutting all the budgets, and there are many cutbacks? If we believe that education is expensive, how about ignorance can be even more expensive. There's the Euro Foundation in Ireland. They've calculated how much it would cost to implement this youth guarantee. It would be about 21 billion euros a year, and how much it would cost to keep with the current status, and you see that the difference is very considerable. That's why ignorance is more expensive than paying for training. Just a couple of words about the Youth Employment Initiative. And sometimes when we are at the grey offices in Brussels and out of the field, so to speak, we tend to think that it's all the same, and journalists have different ways of interpreting things. And a youth guarantee is not the same as a youth employment initiative. A youth guarantee is the core in terms of changing policies that address to the youth. The Youth Employment Initiative, it's a funding tool that tries to give an early response to needs. But if you need to think of something that is going to give you answers, is the youth guarantee. So it's 6,000 million euros that are for the people. Unfortunately, in Spain, all the autonomous communities qualify because there are all over 25% in terms of youth unemployment rate, but we want the young people to receive those benefits, both vocational training and services for the youth. So it's unacceptable what we are seeing in practical terms, and there are a series of measures that you need to qualify for. Unlike the Erasmus Plus, the European Social Fund works in a different manner, because it's the regional governments that present the measures packages that are approved by the European Commission. There are no direct intervention calls, but according to what we know about the Basque government, they are taking the appropriate measures to unify all the measures and to put this youth guarantee in practice. So on July the 1st, this will be available in all the employment agencies. So we'll have a individualized monitoring system for young people. So these programs are all very broad, but I'm going to talk a bit about the framework, and we consider that VET can play a very important role in terms of providing attention to the young population. I've talked about the quality systems, and this is what the Education Directorate is developing in the European Commission. But there are three pillars where vocational training can have an important impact, an effective impact. On the one hand, is to increase work experience opportunities among young people, and maybe 13, 14 or 15 years we can see results, but it's more difficult to see this in general education. Probably the purposes are different, and then is to bridge that gap between education and work market. Sometimes it is bridged, but sometimes is not bridged because there's a lack of apprenticeships and traineeships. And yesterday we talked about the differences between the needs of companies and what the educational system was offering. I think that VET can bridge that gap and can between the needs of the companies depending on the regions and the companies, but also making education is made more relevant. And we mustn't forget that VET is not only for young people. We also talked about people that were 40, 50, 60 years old, and looking at the demographic pyramids that no longer look like pyramids but other structures. So people will have to work longer, and in order to work longer, we will have to upskill. We will have to add new skills. So we need to find a VET strategy that is consistent in order for people to develop new skills and to develop entrepreneurship. In Europe, only 15% say that want to set up a business, whereas in the United States and in Asia, this level is 60%. If we want to compete with Asia and the United States, we have to work in that direction. I have added some links where you can find further information. And the European Social Fund works for people and for all of you. Thank you very much.